Welcome back to the Developer Diaries. This is our last segment in our conversation with Craig Dennis about his experience being a college dropout and how that impacted his career and career growth as a developer. Let's go backtrack a little bit into your experience when you were back in college. You mentioned that
Mhm.
you went into college because you wanted to become a developer, and then very early on you started noticing that like maybe some of these courses were not necessarily what you wanted to study. And then you ended up actually dropping out, and that's such a significant like decision to have to make. It's a difficult decision. And I know like a lot of students are constantly sort of teetering on this edge of should I just drop out? Should I just change majors? Should I just stick through it? Could you tell us a little bit about the series of events that led up to you dropping out?
Yeah, for sure. So, I was a double major. So, and I know we talked about this a little bit, but I had a theater and a computer science major, and I was in these weed out classes. And I think I was, like in hindsight, I think I was probably a little bit too frustrated, and I was burnt out. I was already burnt out on school, and it was affecting me being able to do the work that I was already doing. Like I was like, oh, I need to go home and learn what I'm supposed to learn for work, and on top of this COBOL that they were teaching, like but that I'm not using, and like so. Yeah, that decision was hard for sure, and I kind of, I had to have the talk with my parents too, right? Because they're like, "Oh, you're doing what? I'm sorry, like that doesn't make sense," you know.
Yeah.
Um, they were supportive, and my friends were definitely like, "Wait, what are you doing? You're gonna." Where I was at was, is this going to do what I need it to do for the rest of my career? Is this going to push my career forward? And I decided that it wasn't. That like if I used the time that I was spending on this college, I think I could always come back, right? Like I think that's the thing that people at when you're in the state, you're thinking like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. I saw all sorts of people go and come back. I actually tried some of that. There's that thing unrelated to Phoenix, but there's like this University of Phoenix, and I tried that for a little bit, and I don't. It's probably gotten a lot better, but it was like this
Was
like
that like
night
an
class.
online thing?
It was
Oh, night
before
class.
that. It was like before
Mhm.
that, so it was like this like night class, and it was like working with people who were trying to go back. I think now it's probably all online. I feel like it's probably changed, but I went and tried that for a little bit and did not like it. I did not like
Yeah.
that either. I was having to like retake some of the classes, some of those like again the weeder classes like macroeconomics, and I was like, I already took this, and they're like, no, it's a different level. I'm like, yo, the description is literally the same. Like this is the
Yeah.
one for the one I already have credit for, and this is the one that you're saying. I think you use their curriculum. Like it's
Yeah.
literally the same. Like nope. It's like okay, I'm not going to do this. So that was actually I decided I was going to try it again to go back to do it just because I don't know. I feel like parents were like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, maybe you know more than I do, and I should listen to you." And then, no, I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
When I went
I
back
mean,
to
you
do it.
tried really hard to make it work, right? This wasn't okay, I'm just going to give up after one class situation. This was, I'm going to take the night classes or try to, I'm going to do whatever I can to make it work. And it didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it really hasn't affected my ability to do stuff, right? Like, I get asked sometimes about where I went to school, and like there's a bit of like, didn't, like there's a bit of that you get to do,
Yeah.
which is kind of fun in its own way.
Yeah.
Feels a little punk rock, but
Yeah. Yeah. It's a conversation starter. It's like, oh, you
for sure.
didn't, what happened?
Yeah,
How did you get here?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, like, it's hard to like imagine a place that's accredited for 4 years is ever going to be up to date. Like, if you really like think about like the next 4 years, there's no way. First of all, there's no way that the freshman year this year is learning about AI, right? And
Yeah.
we've seen that as everywhere. And so you're going to be doing that anyway. You're going to have to be learning outside of what your curriculum is to get that. Maybe they'll have somebody come and give a guest talk, but I'm pretty sure in your 4 years that you've signed up to do, there's not an AI class in that. And that's we know that that's not what the future looks like. We know that's
Yeah.
different. Like, and I'm sure that they're dealing with like you can't use what's that GitHub Copilot in your class. I don't even know how
Yeah.
they're battling that in the class because
Yeah.
that's must be like literally everybody's assignments is in there. You know, like everybody can
Yeah.
do the guessing number game and see just by pressing guess a number in tab, and you've got the first semester of C programming done for you. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's an interesting problem to have. Of it's always going to be we are ripping through technology right now. There, it is always going to be outdated,
Yeah.
um, and I'm sure that's a bummer. As I say that, I'm sure there's people that are like, "Oh man, I'm a junior and he's right," or
Yeah.
I don't mean to like send bad thoughts either because there's stuff that you're learning that's important. There is definitely like foundational stuff that is important. Um, and I think everybody works a little bit differently too. Like I think that some people need that structure to get in there, but I was definitely feeling, and I think if you like logically think about it, that structure is not the most up to date tech, and probably not what you're going to do at your job. And I just so
Yeah.
happened to be able to see it at the time because I was there in it. So
Yeah, it's one of those things that like I didn't drop out of college, although I wished I could have many times. But in hindsight, I wouldn't change anything about it. A, because I, need the visa to stay in the country. But then B, like I think there's aspects outside of the classroom more about just like building a routine, building connections with people who are going to be entering the same industry at the same time as you. Just like a certain level of maturity that you gain when you're in college that you might not gain if you start working immediately right after high school. But again, like you said, it's not a one size fits all, right? There's so many other ways to get those same experiences and learn those same things outside of the college environment, as long as you're exposing yourself to the right situations to learn that. So, for example, for you, you were already working, you went to the Peace Corps and everything, right? Like there were other places for you to gain that maturity, um, and have all the skills that you needed to be where you are today. Um, how do you feel in terms of like the stigma around dropping out? Did that impact you at all, especially after you made the decision?
I there was a time. I don't remember if we talked about this yet or not. We could just talk about it again, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
You could say, "Hey, you told me that already. Shut
No, no,
up."
no, go for it. Yeah. It's a different
Okay.
context anyway, so yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that there is a bit of like people assume, right? They assume that you have a degree, and it can get awkward for them because I feel like it puts it on you, and you're like, oh, cool, where'd you go to school? And you're like, oh, I dropped out. It
Yeah,
makes the conversation gets a little weird,
yeah,
and sometimes professionally it gets a little weird. Like, for instance, during the Peace Corps, there when they're like, "Where did you go to school?" And you're like, "Oh, I didn't," and they're like, "You didn't?" Because like that's like a prereq for Peace Corps,
yeah,
right? Like, is that
yeah,
is that you did, and I hadn't. So yeah, there's a bit of a there is a bit of a I think a bit of a stigma, but you know what? I don't think that I've ever had a problem with that at being hired at anything. No one's ever asked about that. Um, I mean, it's not on there, so
yeah,
like I don't have an education and then I have like a line dropped out or anything, or even partial education. I just have the thing, and
yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, and again, like that gets back to the place of I'm not having to prove it, and again comes from a place of it's a place of privilege of like I have this job, I have this experience, and I don't have that line on my resume, and it means I just got to write a little bit more. My resume
yeah,
gets a little bit more of the other stuff. Uh, I think that actually what's silly on LinkedIn actually it keeps asking. It kept on asking me over and over and over again, trying to fill out my
oh, to
profile
add your
about what my
education.
education is. And so mine says like, continue it, lifelong learner, stop asking.
I love that. Sometimes you just have to fill in the blanks so that these automated
Exactly.
systems don't keep bugging you. Yeah. And it wasn't like you gave up or anything, right? You just changed courses. You just decided to get those skills otherwise. When you went to the Peace Corps,
Yeah.
they were like, yeah, you already have these skills, even if you don't have the degree. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I ended up like learning a ton of like web tech like early in the day. Like I don't know what I would have done if I was in school through some of that, right? Like if I didn't have the time to go crack open this like Perl book or this like Python book, I don't know if I would have been able to pick it up if I had all the other stuff. I don't know if I would have had the room in my brain for it. Um, just because, papers and all that and group projects but like I don't know. I feel like there's probably like I think to your point, like there's some things that you learn in college that are good, like those group projects. I appreciated a little bit of that at University of Phoenix because I
Just a
was
little
like
bit.
working. Well, yeah, like working on a group project with people who um, were at a different level than where I was at with technology. Like definitely like have had a different career. Like there was a cake decorator in my class, and like at a safe worked at a Safeway. But if they got um, if they got this degree, they would be able to get a raise for this. So there was like she wasn't really necessarily even interested in the fit. She was interested in having the degree, and I appreciate that. If that's what you're going for, and like it's gonna get you more money, and you're gonna get to pick up some stuff. That's cool. But
Yeah.
sometimes you don't. I don't know. I don't know. That's like the other side of it, where it's like if it's going to get you that foot in the door, then that's probably a good thing. But like I don't think you need it for the foot in the door if you have experience. And like I don't know. I always push people in the treehouse world. Back over at treehouse, we would see this a lot. We'd see a lot of people who decided not to go the college route, and I think that if you do GitHub and you put your stuff out there and you do your projects, or you connect with open source, the open source community is always looking for people, and it's a great way to cut your teeth and work with different teams because all of those projects are different developers and they're different groups of developers. And guess what happens at companies? It's a different group of developers and it's a different code base and it's a different style, and you got to pick that all up. And as somebody who later in life was a hiring manager, I always listen for people who were like, oh yeah, no, I don't know how to do that yet, but I will learn how to do that. And that's what I would always, we should hire this person because they're gonna pick up and learn, and their experience. Look at their experience here. So I think that's a fun, that's a piece of advice.
Yeah. So there's like different elements of, or not different elements, but different characteristics of a person that can sort of help you determine whether you want to go down the more structured college route or whether you can be a self-starter and just do things on your own. And one of the things that you're saying is wanting to learn, and like not just saying like, oh yeah, I want to learn, but just having that like constant desire to keep learning. And if I can't do this today, I'll figure it out. That type of
Yeah,
mentality, which is probably the most important thing if you're going away from the structured education model.
yeah, yeah. And I definitely, I think we didn't talk about this part of my career yet. Forgot this diary entry, but there was a time when the internet existed in a very strange place, and companies were like, maybe I should have a website. Like I don't know. This is this like new, and I was at a very early company in Arizona when we were living there, and they used to do you know when it's like home run on the screen at the baseball
Oh yeah, yeah,
games
yeah.
or hockey
Yeah.
games, they're like let's go, like the
Yeah.
the team the team there worked those jumbotron things, and so like somehow that translated into web properties. So like, the Phoenix Coyotes there were like, hey, we should have a web page. Hey, the people who do the sign should make the web page, and this company was born. And so it was very early web stuff, right? And so like there was literally no way to learn this. You like when I'm talking like CSS didn't exist, like we were all building stuff with like tables and things like that, and there was no way to learn that. So there was no way that school even mattered at that point for what we were looking for. And like literally we were not looking for like heavy back end stuff or algorithms or file systems or all that stuff, right? We were just you have to be able to learn. And so like that's a type of person that
Mhm.
says I will do that. And I think that that's always what I look for. And I think if you can convey that that's who you are, that is how you can skip the school. That's how you can skip through the standard education process. Is
Yeah.
I will learn this. I have learned this. Look what I've done.
Yeah. Like I don't even need access to those resources. I'll just figure it out. I'll talk to people if I have to. Yeah.
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 That is definitely important. I'm glad you brought that up. I think in general, there's just like so many different things that you can learn over the course of your life. There's no way that we can just boil it down into like one podcast. Um, if you could travel back in time and change anything in either the process of dropping out or just at any point in your career, is there anything that you would change?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I think I took a little bit too long to get back to my theater stuff, right? Like I know that we say that we talked about this, but I think like I found it again, like the presentational skills. I found that again teaching, and I realized that, but then I didn't do it after. Like I came back and I worked for a whole nother decade of like, oh, I'll go into the software route and I'll find it this way, but I missed my presentational skills, and like that's a part of who I am. And like if I don't use it, it's this like it's and when I left that company, that was literally what I was doing. I was like, I need to use this skill. This is part of who I am, and it's lying dormant, and it's fun, And so yeah, I think that if I had to go do it all over again, like I appreciate the fact that I dove deep and we built a system and learned microservices and I tried management. Like I appreciate all that, but I wish that right then I just went, you know what, this is a skill that I know that I like. How do I teach? And I guess like in reality, I don't know if it existed at the time when I was needing it. I don't know if it was possible to do that. I probably would have ended up being like a technical trainer and done a lot of traveling. Like probably is what that would have looked like
Yeah.
before we figured out how to make it scale, right, with videos and things like that. That's probably what that would have looked like if I had gone that route. But again, like I didn't really have the experience, I guess, to do that. So like I think that level of work experience helped me go to get the thing that then let me do the presentational stuff. So I don't know. I think that like I think it's a good question, but I don't know if I would change anything. What about you?
Yeah.
Did you change anything so far in your career?
Um, that is a great question, Craig.
That's yours, so
I
don't
yeah.
let me take credit for it.
I always like to live my life as like I wouldn't change anything. I have definitely made a lot of mistakes, right? There's a lot of things that
Sure.
I regret in life.
Yeah.
But I would rather just take whatever I've learned and try to apply it to whatever I'm doing today as opposed to going
Awesome.
back in time because there's so many things that I have learned from those mistakes that I've made, right? From the classes that I've
Yeah.
skipped, from the times that I didn't do well in school, um, to even like, for example, like when I first started working, I was, like, very much hounded by imposter syndrome the entire time, right? I was like, "Oh my god, I don't deserve to be here." I could say that I wish I could go back and be more confident, but that's not something you can just, be, right? I had to
Right.
go through that phase of not being confident and then
Yeah.
reach a point where I realized why that was wrong so that today I
Yeah.
could be. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah.
Well, I think that and you're sharing it. I think you're sharing your
Yeah.
experience that you do that everybody has imposter syndrome, Like I
Yeah.
think that like
Yeah.
that's such like a and now you're sharing it. So like yeah, you're right. You can't go back and if you didn't have it, you wouldn't be able to empathize or share that. So yeah,
Exactly.
there you go. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And I definitely think that there's like the imposter syndrome or any of these problems are always going to stay, right? They're never going to vanish completely, but just
Yeah.
being able to learn how to overcome it and like not let it affect you on a day to day, on a second to second basis is really important.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep. I think there's this thing that happens like I don't know if it's like I didn't really get it till my 30s, right? But like nobody knows what they're doing. That doctor on his first day does not know what he's doing. That pilot on her first day does not know what she's doing. Yeah, like that. It's like uh, everybody has this imposter syndrome. Of like, Can you imagine? Can you imagine what it's like to fly a plane that first time? Like that imposter
Yeah.
syndrome must be out of this world. And like
Yeah.
here we are like I can't do this. I can't, how am I
I
gonna
can't
make
build
this?
this little
I can't
game that
center
two
this
people are gonna
link.
use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like I don't know. That's one of those things that realizations of like everybody is going through that.
Yeah.
Everybody is it's somebody's first time doing the thing, and
Yeah.
everybody felt that way at some time. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's also kind of once you are able to overcome it or master it, it's just like that little bit of anxiety can be helpful in just making sure that you are prepared. So just looking at it as more of an opportunity to just prepare yourself as opposed to something that's going to prevent you from taking further opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Is there anything else in terms of just like life lessons and things that you want to share with students, junior developers, anything that we didn't get a chance to talk about when we were, going through your life journey that you want to put out there?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things, one of my favorite pieces of advice that I think everybody needs to hear, especially people who are just getting into coding and feeling like they don't belong or that they don't have the skills that everybody else has, is first of all, everybody has felt that. And second of all, you are coming with a unique life experience and you are needed. Like I think that one is like, that should hit home for everybody. You have a set of skills, a set of experiences that will make whatever you're building be more thoughtful, and you have a set of skills, whether you know it or not, that people will appreciate, and hopefully you get to use them. Like try to tune into the places, where they're dormant. If like if you're a lawyer and you've switched to go over into programming, there's going to be some people who need to know about how the law things work or what to think about in that space, and bring your knowledge over. And if you're the cake decorator, I'm sure that there's some things about organization in there, and there's some sort of things about design that you probably know that you might not even think that you know. And I think I think it's critical to like keep that in mind, that you are coming, and nobody knows everything. Like it feels like, oh man, I wish every time I try to explain this, I can never explain this one just right. But there's this like picture of what you think everybody knows, and it's like what you think you know, but it turns out it's just like people just know their little bits, and you put it together and everybody knows the stuff. But everybody just knows a little bit of their thing. They don't know everything. And it's like I probably would struggle because I haven't had to start a React app from scratch these days. I don't know what the thing is. I haven't had to do that for 4 years. And if I told you that, that might be surprising of like, I don't know but I don't know how to do it. Like, and I know that I can pick it up. I know that I
Yeah.
could probably go and read 1,000 blog posts about people's different attention to detail. But like I'm on the back end of oftentimes. And that's just not something I know. And that I absolutely know that when people are, especially if they are running you through a boot camp and they're trying to make you pick up React, you're like, oh, everybody knows this. Everybody knows how. It's not true. It is
Yeah.
not true. People know their little bit of it. And if somebody's cruising through it, it's because they've probably done it before. But there was a time when they felt exactly like you do.
Yeah.
And I think that's I love being able to give that message to people who are trying. So yeah. So thanks. Thanks for letting me
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me share that piece there, Shrey.
Thank you so much for sharing it. And thanks for being on my podcast and kickstarting the entire series. I'm
So
really
exciting.
excited to see how things go. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for honored to be a part of this, to have these diary entries here. I'm so excited for this. And you know what? Congratulations for trying. Like we talked about that, right? You got to try,
Yeah.
and here it goes. And I love it. I love it. I think it's an excellent job. I think you did a great job. So thank you.
Thank you. Yay. I'm excited to see how it goes. Thanks so much, Craig. Have a great day.
Yeah, you
Bye.
too.